Ms. Bush from Missouri for 5 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. St. Louis and I are here today, Dr. Califf, to first thank you for the work that the FDA has done to eliminate cumbersome restrictions on mifepristone, one of 2 drugs used for medication abortion. As Ranking Member Raskin mentioned at the top of the hearing, mifepristone is subject to a risk evaluation and mitigation strategy, also known as REMS. During the peak of COVID-19, the FDA suspended enforcement of a REMS requirement that mifepristone be dispensed in person. Due to the success of this trial run, we know that in January 2023, the FDA permanently updated the strategy to remove the in-person dispensing requirement. This has proven that the in-person dispensing requirement was never actually medically necessary. I have a bill called the Protecting Access to Medication Abortion Act, which would assure that mifepristone, 1, does not have an in-person dispensing requirement, 2, allows patients to access prescriptions for mifepristone via telehealth, and 3, authorizes all pharmacies certified to dispense mifepristone to patients to do so via mail. So thank you to the FDA for your commitment to your evidence-based care that serves patients and not politicians. Next, I want to turn to sickle cell, a disease that affects approximately 100,000 people across our country, the majority of whom are Black people, and about 2,000 people across my district. In fact, according to the CDC, 1 out of every 365 Black children in the United States are born with sickle cell disease. It cuts at least 20 years from life expectancy. And so as a nurse, I've treated people with sickle cell disease. Patients experience totalizing pain, and it is debilitating. This illness completely takes over your life, and it is heart-wrenching, and we don't speak enough about it. So last year, the FDA issued a groundbreaking approval of the first gene therapy to treat sickle cell disease. And so this new technology is the first time genetic editing has been used to treat any disease. As a result, patients who face excruciating pain and even death from sickle cell disease will now be able to better manage this life-threatening condition. For many who may have been unable to hold steady employment, spend time with friends and family, or otherwise participate in everyday life because of this illness, this is truly life-altering and is life-sustaining. This technology would be impossible without the diligent and the science-driven work of the FDA. So, Dr. Califf, what did the FDA consider when determining the new sickle cell treatment, determining that it is safe and effective?
As I believe you probably know, there were actually 2 treatments approved, one using gene editing per se and another using a viral vector. And in both cases, human clinical trials were done taking sickle cell patients. As you well know, being a nurse, people with sickle cell disease, even though the genetic issue is essentially the same area of the human genome, the manifestation of the disease is quite different. So what was done in these trials were to take people who were having the worst outcomes, that is many attacks, painful crises, and then doing the gene effort, and then following them after and showing that those crises abated almost completely. It was quite a remarkable result, but in a small group of patients. And so there's a lot yet to learn. But it was important to give access to that treatment to those who would benefit.
Okay. Is there potential for this new treatment to be used to treat other genetic diseases?
It's very exciting, and I alluded to it in my opening comments. You know, I was around for the Human Genome Project, and people for decades said, where's the beef? You know, we put all this money into 3.2 billion base pairs and knowing what they are. Now we're here because thanks to the science, we can go in with molecular scissors and snip out the gene that's causing the problem and put in a new one, or snip out the gene that's causing the problem if we don't need to put in a new one. There are 10,000 rare diseases with no treatment right now. You're talking about parents of children who have terrible outcomes. And so this is such a revolution in terms of therapeutics that we're making major changes within the FDA. But it's got to go further than that because you're aware that the cost of these treatments is quite high. So I think there's going to be a lot for you in Congress to work with the administration on here to figure out, you know, if you're a parent of a child with a rare disease now, there's hope that within a few years we could have an effective treatment. But if we have hundreds to thousands of effective treatments, the environment in which this is done has got to look different than it does right now. I hope that was helpful.
Yes, yes. Chairman, okay, thank you. One last question. How can we ensure that people who require these genetic therapies aren't priced out? Because like you started to allude to. But
Well, I can take the easy out and say it's not, you know, it's not, as FDA Commissioner on a hearing about FDA, it's definitely not in our remit, but I can assure you there are many discussions going on across HHS where, as you know, for example, in sickle cell disease, the majority of patients are on Medicaid.
right.
Because their medical costs are so high and the difficulty with jobs in a case where you're sick a lot, that we've got to come up with new pricing schemes. And I am, as an academic, a health policy person, but I shouldn't opine on that here at this hearing. I'd be glad to talk with you separately.
Okay, I'll reach out. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I yield back.
Chair